and welcome to episode 13 of Critical Twits. This week we're going to be discussing how to get yourself started in the tabletop role-playing game hobby. Yay. I'm Brian Ennis.
I'm Aaron Ravitsky.
And I'm Colin Howard.
But before we get started, let's have some news. Ooh, beep, 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 beep.
Morse code.
And some tramadol for Aaron. He's far too excited. Now, we're not going to make any pretensions to being a news site, but what we will do when we remember, I was going to say every week, we might be lying, is have a look through the latest board game, video game and tabletop role-playing game news and share with you anything that we find particularly interesting or particularly funny.
Yeah.
This week then, starting with role-playing games, I have backed the Mutant Gen Lab Alpha Kickstarter that has just been released a couple of days ago.
Yeah, I think
just started.
Yeah. That will probably be a week and a couple of days ago by the time it's come out. But...
yeah. So it's started right at the beginning of February or the very end of January.
Yeah.
Goes through to the end of February, and it's a follow-up to Mutant Year Zero, which if you scroll down or left or sideways, depending on where you're looking at where we are, you'll be able to see our special. What do we think of Mutant Year Zero?
It's amazing.
We love it.
We do, and so I dove in straight away. I'm not the only person in our gaming group to have backed it, in actual fact.
No.
Which means that we're going to have 2 copies of the rulebook.
That doesn't surprise me one bit. No.
And because we went for the highest Kickstarter values, Kickstarter pledge levels, we're also going to have a grand total of 4 copies of Mutant Year Zero around the table as well. Because
that might actually be handy.
Yeah,
since me and Aaron don't buy rule books for anything.
No, because you are cheap,
no, it's because
tawdry little men.
We can't read.
Well, that as well.
Yes, yeah. But we've heard there's nice pictures in there. So
you're really good at interpretive
pictures.
dance. So, swings and roundabouts, really.
It's the beard.
It's odd that we decided to do podcasting rather than video reviews based on our skills, but
that's because of our faces.
Your sexual dancing is a language entirely your own. Yes, so Mutant Gen Lab Alpha is set in the same universe. It's compatible with Mutant Year Zero, but can also be played as a standalone game with its own meta plot. So it has its own built-in campaign.
Cool.
And it has sort of crossover rules for introducing the characters from there into a mutant campaign and vice versa. Year Zero campaign, and vice versa. Need to stop calling Mutant Year Zero mutant. Because there's going to be 2 mutants now.
Yeah. Well, there's already Mutant Chronicles as well, isn't there?
Yes, yeah. I think they've gone with mutant as being sort of the brand name, and then they're giving these different sort of spin-offs. It's all based around a group of mutated animal creatures. So, Island of Dr. Moreau style...
Usagi Yojimbo type.
Yeah, humanoid animals.
Are you essentially saying a post-apocalyptic Animal Crossing?
Yes.
Excellent. Right. Now if that was a thing, I would buy a DS immediately.
There is some absolutely amazing artwork out there. It's not, you say, humanoid animals or animalistic humanoids, and you think, that's quite twee. We don't think that, Colin. Shush. You think it's going to be quite twee, quite silly. No, the artwork is dark and gritty in exactly the same style as Mutant Year Zero, so they're using scavenged items as clothing. They're kind of battered and beaten. There's a really, really nice picture of, well, I say nice picture, it's quite harrowing, of the people who run the paradise that they live in, which isn't really a paradise, but that's what they call it, being held down and operated on by very sort of strange robotic assailants.
That picture.
Yes.
Yeah, it does look amazing and scary. It's one of the few times I've seen an anthropomorphic animal and gone, he's in shit. Like, actually, I kind of felt sympathy, not like, it's a cartoon, this is funny, because he'll explode with confetti or something when they cut him open.
They sent me a moose with a baseball bat.
Right.
As one of the Kickstarter things. They just went, here's a picture of a moose! And it looked amazing. I had goggles on and it looked ready to kick everyone on the backside.
A lot of this pictures stuff, I mentioned Usagi Yojimbo because it just reminded me of that the original Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 80s comic and things. Like, it's something you present almost as cartoony, really grim and dark, and it's a nice contrast.
Yeah,
it works really well.
And you could probably, with a little bit of twisting, do Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, the role-play game from it as well, if you really wanted to. If you're good.
Okay.
So yes.
No. just no.
You used to love Turtles, Colin.
No.
You did. You told me that Donatello was your favourite because he was a nerd like you.
No.
You did. Do you not remember that?
No.
Oh, Colin's gone all shy.
I preferred Leonardo because he reminded me of the painter.
They're all painters.
Yeah, but at the time of my childhood, Leonardo was the only one I'd heard of.
Yeah.
Oh, God. So, yes, just a bit of news that's come out. It's a combination, again, of Modiphius publishing it in the UK.
Yeah.
And
They're very good with these kind of things.
Across, yes. We like them. And the Free League, or the Freie Ligen, from its native Sweden. The translation is apparently already done, so they're really just after the money to print up the books and send them out.
Cool.
They've already passed 10 stretch goals in 3 days.
Bloody hell.
So please can you go and give them lots of money so that we can unlock I think it's a few more down, but it puts all of the extra sectors that they've unlocked into a nice little paperback book. Ooh. And I really want it. So give them money, please. Cool. That's it. That's just my role-play game news. In board game news, Plaid Hat Games, or Plaid Hat. Have we decided how that's pronounced?
I still think it's Plaid.
It's Plaid, isn't it?
Yeah.
I didn't even want to attempt to pronounce it, to be honest.
Pronounce what, Colin?
Anything.
What specifically? Yes, Plaid Hat Games have released an expansion come sequel for Dead of Winter called Dead of Winter The Long Night. Ooh. Which is it's a standalone game but also acts as an expansion, so you can mix the two if you like.
I like this new thing that seems to be happening with things at the minute.
Yes, because you can dive in if you like the look of the new thing.
Yeah.
Without having to buy the old thing as well.
Yeah,
I think it's quite nice. I do like that.
Yeah.
And then you can go back and buy the old thing as well if you like it.
Yeah.
Yes, so that's coming out. It's got brand new survivors, brand new cards, new event deck, lots and lots of shiny new things, and some variants on the rules and such like.
Cool.
I think that's one of my favourite games of, ever, really.
Yeah,
Dead of Winter.
Apart from the ninja.
Yes, the poor ninja.
Poor ninja. He never
Kenneth Cho?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, he never made it.
Yeah, the ninja always died. We had 3 consecutive games where the ninja died in his first move in the first round.
That's been something window. Oh, he could fight really well. Let's throw him at things.
Yeah, and he never even made it to the things because he died on the way. Yeah. I think he was a ninja and he just slipped away, never to be seen again.
Yes.
It's like, fuck this shit. There's zombies everywhere. Let's go home.
Yeah, let's go back.
Wherever ninjas live. Feudal Japan.
Yes.
In his time machine. So very excited, looking forward to that. It's being released at one of the big American board game conventions and then should be available Q3, September, October time. It's a bit of a long way away, but you can see they've just started releasing details and such like, so I'm quite excited for that.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Finally then, video game news, and sad times for all the backers of Ant Simulator on Kickstarter.
What?
Ant Simulator. It's where you simulate an ant.
Like the old game on, I think it was like the PC, the SNES of things, where you ran an ant in an ant colony.
I have no idea.
Oh, Sid Meier's Ants or something like that.
Yes, there was ants or. Yeah, I think that might have been.
Okay.
Yeah, it was really good. Yeah.
Right.
Yes, kickstarted with the promise of basically they were going to give you videos on how to make a game using the game Ant Simulator as the game, and then release the game.
Okay.
Raised $5,000 or so on Kickstarter, and I will now quote for you the headline from Kotaku.co.uk.
Like a real news reader now.
Indie dev cancels game, says co-workers stole money for booze and strippers.
To be fair, if you are going to steal money, it might as well be for booze and strippers.
Now, I hasten to add that the chap in question, Eric Tereshinsky, His two co-publishers have replied denying the charges and saying that the money that they spent was a business expense. Perfectly covered in what they're doing. And
now,
typical.
Are strippers a business expense? I mean,
If
I've
you're
seen
a
The Wolf of Wall Street.
Yeah, I was
so...
going to say, if you're a 1980s businessman, then yes, technically.
Yeah.
But as a modern
Making
indie developing
games.
company, I can't imagine how well a stripper jiggling her body parts at you really helps with the creative
If you're
process.
making Dead or Alive...
jiggle physics.
Oh, God. Oh, I'm sorry, I've just been sick in my mouth.
Hey, that might be my paycheck one day. I might pay for my uni loans.
What's really worrying is if they're actually going in it for realistic jiggle physics, why are they making Ant Simulator? Are they planning on making sexy ants?
Mm. Oh,
That's a new twist on
she's showing her thorax. Oh.
Maybe it's James Cameron's next movie after Avatar. I've done blue people, now we'll have tiny
I
ants.
suppose the sexiest part of the strip is when they sort of take the stockings down the leg and you've got 3 times as much sexiness in an ant.
Well,
I made Colin snort. Victory achieved. So yeah, just I suppose I shouldn't have followed up the back things on Kickstarter with a tale of a terrible Kickstarter. So now for the main feature, how to get started in the hobby of tabletop role-playing games.
Yeah.
Because we talk quite a lot about tabletop role-playing games, but we
do.
know they're probably not. It's not a huge hobby.
No.
It's had its, well, I suppose its popular heyday.
Yeah, and it's starting to make its way back. I mean, YouTube and things like that have definitely made it come back into public eye a bit better and people are more aware of it.
Yeah, and we were talking last week about how sort of the rise of indie publishing and all that kind of thing has made it.
Kickstarter and
Any fit concept you want to actually have a try at playing a game, you've got something out there for you now.
Yeah.
But getting started on it isn't necessarily the most non-daunting thing. It could seem very scary, even though it's not.
And I'd also say, hopefully, we're going to give enough sort of tips and ideas for people that even if you have played before, hopefully we can give you something to work on or to incorporate into your games.
Yeah, certainly.
I've been playing tabletop role-play games for 15 years.
Wow.
Colin? Oh God, I've asked Colin to do numbers.
you did.
37 loaves of bread.
407 years.
It's been 4 terabytes since I started playing.
I actually think it's been about 10 years for me.
Wow.
When I joined you in the group, I think I was 18, roughly.
How long have you been tabletop role-playing?
2. I only started with you guys,
years?
really, yeah.
Did you never have a go before?
Not really. I had the gateway try. A little bit, yeah, it's a bit weird. It's like, oh, I was old and I did it. No, I had kind of gateway things. Like flesh, no.
It still fits with the virginity thing.
No, we used to play. I used to play Warhammer Quest.
Okay, yeah.
Which had kind of role-playing elements in it.
Yeah.
We particularly did. Like, we took the whole travelling to town and acting in character as certain things. But it was more like if we made decisions for the character, we wouldn't necessarily have conversations as such, completely in character and things like that. So, role-playing light.
Yeah, sort of on the cusp. We played, tabletop role-playing games when you sit round a table, be it a physical table or a virtual table on the internet, and you tell a story together, essentially. Now, there are all sorts of different types of role-playing games that go from the pure storytelling, with very, very few rules and quite a free-form structure, all the way up to something that's very heavily combat-based, where actually you spend the majority of your time murdering people or bad things, goblins, as it may be.
Which is the one most people would be probably aware of, because that's how they use most games.
Yes, role-playing games started way back in the 60s, very late 60s, with Gary Gygax's Dungeons and Dragons, sort of the father of role-playing games, and that came from people who were collecting miniatures and wanted a rule system to do battle with them, but maybe not huge battles with huge armies or collecting huge units.
Yeah.
Instead, buying one of these and one of those and one of that because it looks cool. And I want a dragon, and I want a manticore.
Yeah.
So the origins of the hobby started with that wargaming style, where it was mostly about your statistics and combat.
Yay, numbers!
Numbers, woo!
God, we love numbers.
So the hobby was a little bit tricky to get into in that the rules were quite difficult at those times. They were very much focused on combat and earning loot, a little bit like playing Diablo now.
Yes.
For instance. But more and more people got into the character side of it, and you become the character, and you would speak as your character when you were around the table, and you would you'd be invested in their personal goals and those sorts of things. And you've ended up with, even now modern D&D has stuff to guide you through that and has more emphasis on the social interaction as well. But you can go for games, as I said, that are pure storytelling, almost pure combat, or anywhere in between. There's hundreds, if not thousands, of different roleplay systems out there, especially now with the advent of the PDF and internet downloads, because you don't need to print a load and try and get your money back. You can get something old, update it a bit, stick it back out there. You can release online only. You can release your source books and your updates online. So, should we describe a typical roleplay session? We're actually going to play a game of Fiasco. Which is a freeform-ish storytelling-based game with very limited rules, because as much fun as it is to roll a dice, it's not best for a podcast. No. I rolled a 7.
Clap.
Clap, clap.
Oh, look,
clap,
it's
clap,
a
clap,
20
clap, clap.
again.
I had a player like that, which we might talk about that. So a typical role-playing session will start with, you'll generally have one player who is known as the DM, or Dungeon Master, or Storyteller.
I always called them the GM. Always referred
Or
to
Games
them as
Master,
GM.
GM.
Didn't really use
Because I'm old school like that.
DM, Dungeon Master, is from Dungeons and Dragons.
Whereas GM was used for other systems, wasn't it? Because you were playing a game and needed someone to be in charge of it.
Yes.
Which makes more sense.
They will describe a scene. They will set a scene to you, to the players, and then the players will describe what they want to do. And any time there's some kind of random chance or forces come into conflict, so you're trying to hit the orc, and the orc is trying to get out of the way.
Now that is racist.
You are resolved using dice-based systems of varying complexity.
Not by throwing them at the orc, but by rolling them.
So the GM, the person running the game, acts as the arbiter. But it's not a competitive game, and I can't stress this enough. And this brings me to my first problem player, which is the bad DM that thinks he has to kill everyone.
Yes.
There is an exception to this player. This I think would work okay if you're playing a singular session of something. If you're playing one evening of gameplay, having the GM being quite aggressive at you and trying to murder you the entire time will be fine, as long as there's some way of you coming back in and playing the game.
Yes, there is a difference. I agree with that, in a way that if you're playing a small one session off or a couple of sessions, getting killed doesn't matter, but deliberately trying to kill the entire party so that they can't win is not good storytelling.
The idea is that you work together to have fun telling the story. And part of that fun as being a DM is to put challenges in their way so that players feel good when they've overcome them. But those challenges could be a combat, they could be a riddle, they could be a social situation they need to manoeuvre their way through.
That can turn into a combat if it goes horribly wrong. That's happened more than once.
Yes. But it happens nearly every week.
That's because we're pretty much joyously bad at social interaction. Hence the reason we talk to the internet over a podcast.
Yes. So we can't see their faces. All their eager faces looking up at us. Our brains with wisdom.
You do realise
I'm actually sweating slightly at that. Trying to murder the entire party.
It's a cooperative story. Lord of the Rings would not be fun if the entire fellowship died horribly
halfway through
in the middle of Moria.
Yeah.
And Sauron just went, I win, you lose. Where's the fun in that?
Yeah, now Boromir getting killed sometimes.
Yes, yeah.
That can enhance the story and in fact give you more plot points later on.
And I've played games with people that are much more into the combat side of things, that actually the DM will be fair, but they will put very hard challenges in the way. And if you die, well, that's kind of your own fault. And they cycle through characters quite a lot.
Yeah.
But I've also played games where people have literally burst into tears because their character has died. So each group kind of negotiates its own way through, and your choice of game and your discussions there will kind of guide you.
Yes.
Yeah.
Now, I suppose what do you need to play? You need a set of rules.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You might need some dice or some cards or an chin or a tarot deck or whatever it is that the game uses to
Ouija board.
Generally a set of dice.
Jenga tower. There is one out there that uses a Jenga tower.
Yes.
Is there really?
Yes. Every time you've got a dangerous challenge, you've got to pull a toll from the Jenga tower.
That
if it collapses,
sounds like
dead.
fun.
Yeah, if it collapses, you die. You fail the challenge in such a way that you die horribly.
That's
What's
brilliant.
that called?
I can't remember for the life of me.
Insert name here. There you go. Cut
You'll
yourself.
have to say it then.
No, cut yourself out and just have you give me the answer.
Yeah, okay.
Oh, excellent. That's great, Aaron. I should have a go at
That
that.
sounded so forced. That's excellent, Aaron. Nice.
Well done, buddy. Good memory. Yes. So you need rules. You need whatever it is to resolve those conflicts. In Fiasco, that we're about to play, there is no system for resolving conflict.
No.
It's quite freeform in that way. Keep saying that word, should stop it. And you need some people to play with. Now, I have played role-play games one-on-one.
Yeah.
Because I set up a session, everyone went to sleep, so me and my friend just stayed up all night and I ran through a different session that I made up on the fly.
Okay.
It was one of the best sessions ever. It was great. Did it as a prequel to the game that we were running at the time.
Yeah.
So really fleshed out his background and all that kind of thing.
Okay.
And then I killed him last.
Yeah. I could see that working. When you first said it, I was like, that sounds like the dullest thing ever. But no, I can see that really working, actually.
You will also... The main ingredient is those people. Generally, you're looking for 4, 5, maybe 6 people. I've seen games being run with 8 people around the table, and generally you don't get much sort of time in the spotlight. Things get very confused. Everyone's contradicting each other. So you'll need a quiet space.
Yeah.
With a table generally, so you can roll dice and store your snacks. You should sit on the table. That's bad manners. You need chairs for that. Chairs or a chaise longue.
I just like the idea of everybody sort of casually leaning on the table, going, "Yeah, no, I'm gonna murder that orc's family." Cool.
Now that is racist.
And you need jazz. Lots of jazz. We never role play without jazz.
and sound effects.
There's lots of other things that you could have. You could have maps. You could have music. You have sound effects. You can have miniatures. Some games use miniatures.
Yeah.
Dungeons and Dragons, for instance, will quite often use miniatures.
Yeah.
But really, you just need people.
Yes. That's important.
Bits of paper, pencils, and some rubbers. That's pretty much it.
Yeah.
For the Fiasco game we're about to play, we have 12 dice in 2 different colours. We've got a pen each.
Yeah.
Some bits of paper and a book. That's it. That's all we need to actually have a game. One of my favourite things about role-playing is you might think it's expensive. If you look at Dungeons and Dragons, you need 3 books. They're about £25-30 each.
Yeah.
If I think, how many hours of 3.5 D&D, so the 3.5 edition of Dungeons and Dragons, how many hours of that game have we played?
Well, we did once a week. Back when we had no lives and therefore more time to roleplay, we did about 8 hours a week, every week, and you were doing it before I joined in, but I did it for about 6 years with you.
Yes. So
and you did it for longer before then.
2,500 hours of entertainment for £60 each.
that also kind of makes me sad inside.
Yeah.
So when you look at something like, you go, oh, Fallout 4 is great,
80 hours.
value, 80 hours, 100 hours.
For 60 quid,
Yeah.
Nothing compared to a good role-playing game.
Yes.
Fiasco, the
And it
game
doesn't
costs about
crash.
£15, and I already had the dice.
Yeah.
But even a set of dice is hardly anything, less than £20.
No. There's systems like Pathfinder where you can get the majority of the stuff for it, well, the stuff you needed for a bare bones game for free.
Yes, the open game license stuff, it's available.
Again, you might want the books and stuff because it's nice and shiny, it looks clear, but
And that's entertaining multiple people as well.
Yeah.
Because I'm sure you guys would get bored sitting there with me, watching me play Fallout. Give me a go, I want to shoot a monster.
Yeah.
But in a role-play game, everyone's involved.
Yes.
You might need to pick someone, probably the person either who has played the most or owns the rules and therefore has read it the most.
Yes.
If your game requires a dungeon master, if possible, getting in with someone who's already played before to guide you through is good.
Yeah.
If not, there's some really good. Most games will have an example of how it should work in the beginning.
Yeah.
We're going to give you an example in our next podcast, which we're going to record straight after this while we're in the mood. But there's also loads of videos of people playing online now.
Yeah. I was going to say, because it's Pathfinder, when I started with your group, I watched a selection of videos with the guy introducing his other half to the system, going through the book and showing them how to
did you
create
do that
characters
before
and
you
stuff.
came and joined our group?
Yeah, because I was it can be quite daunting because most people's impressions of role playing has come from seeing stuff like Dungeons and Dragons, whereas there's rules everywhere, and I don't want to be sitting there going, I've rolled some dice, what does that mean?
That's what I did for 6 years.
You still do that.
Well, that's true.
Oh no, that's why I've embraced that.
I always feel sorry for you now, Aaron, because you looked at these videos and then I was just mental at you for an entire night.
That's very true.
We might need to move it, but do you want to share your first experience of role play?
So, got obviously invited to come play with you guys. There was Brian and Colin there, and two others, which I won't mention names because not very things, but there's two of. So a small group of us, and we're all using, was it the GUMP system?
GURPS. General, is it a generic universal role-playing system? I think it stands for.
Which I didn't need to really know much for. Just put some dots and things and roll some dice.
Yeah, the advantage was, I knew the system and I was running the game.
Yeah.
So I just guided you through. I told you what you needed to roll when.
Yeah.
Which is a great way to teach someone, is actually just to get them to play.
Yes.
Yeah.
Get stuck in, have a go, work it out as you go along.
We sat down and created the universe, in essence, because we're doing a sci-fi setting for that one. We all sat down and went, okay, we want it to work a little bit like this, we want things to happen like there, we want our characters, I've created this character like this, so I want to try and do this. It's quite nice. I was playing like a working class thug, I suppose, who had kind of worked as a bouncer and odd jobs and was going to, was it Mars or the Moon?
It was the Moon.
We were colonising the Moon.
To try and look, because there's more profit and money to be made there.
Yeah, there was a sort of a Cold War going on where one side was building on the dark side of the Moon and one side was building on the other side of the Moon. Don't even know if that's possible. I don't know. I'm not super keen. I'm not super clued up on the Moon.
Yeah.
I was for about a day when I was working this stuff out.
Yeah.
So everybody led me through. It was a matter of sitting down and going, what kind of things sound interesting and talking about that, and then making a character I thought I could probably pretend to be for a little while. So I played something simple, so we didn't have to talk too much, just in case I felt nervous. Yeah, and then Colin proceeded to be incredibly odd at me for the entire game because he was playing a slightly mentally ill elderly gentleman who my character, I kind of felt, as I was getting more and more into my character, I felt incredibly sorry for because he was seemed to be dawdling through life and needed somebody to protect him.
This is a great example of different play styles, and there's no play style that's more valid or less valid than others.
For the disclaimer here.
Some people get really into their characters, and everything they say at the table is their character.
Yes.
And we've done that. We've played that way.
That.
Yeah.
We used to have a special hand signal involving putting a fist on top of our heads
Yes.
in order to show that we were speaking out of character.
Which you think is a nice system.
To encourage us to be in character, so we could assume that everything was said in character.
Yes.
There is sometimes with role play, I don't know, you're on the bridge, the troll is blocking the bridge, and you turn around to the guy next to you and say, well, maybe we should kill him. Now, did you say that out of character? At which point, how are your characters communicating?
Yeah.
So that the person on the bridge doesn't hear.
Yeah, and if you did say it, well, surely if it hears you, it's going to be annoyed with you.
Yes, the troll
it
is
can
not going to
understand
be
your language.
particularly pleased.
It was a
works
nice
well.
way of dealing with that kind of ambiguity that there is in the
I
in the game.
found doing that when I first joined the session, because again, not used to play acting in essence it, that it forced me to consider things a bit more.
Yes.
And not just go, oh, I kind of fancy doing this while sat there and just think about it, actually be the character more. It really helped me get involved and engaged in things.
So I would suggest that before you get going, you just have a quick conversation about how you want to handle those sorts of things.
Yeah.
What you're expecting from the game, because you might find that some people are really into the storytelling and some people are really into the combat.
Yes.
And actually the group I run for and play as part of, that you two are in, I would say we've got 2 extreme storytellers, one extreme rules monster, and 2 people that sit in the middle.
Yeah.
Who are they?
Oh God.
Story
is you're the other big engaged storyteller.
Yeah, me on story.
Story.
Where do you two think you sit?
I'm more in the middle.
Yep, I put you in the middle.
Yeah, so I love the storytelling and stuff like that, but it depends on how awake I am at the time.
Yeah, but you go, oh, I've been doing this. Ha ha! Handful of dice occasionally.
Yes,
You
I get quite an indication. Or I can do
I can do something cool. You really like your mutations.
Yes, I do.
For instance, and not
sort of like
necessarily in a story way, but in a fucking blasted that thing and it died.
Look at that thing explode!
Yeah.
Yay!
Colin.
Story.
Yeah.
Colin's the story man. Colin.
I always feel like because you always make interesting characters that are quirky with the story.
They just want to have a nice time, and I always
you seem to accidentally break the rules.
Yeah.
It's like you've not gone through going.
I genuinely think when you were levelling up that ranger, you would open up the book and look until you found a feat that looked okay. Then you close the book and write it down.
Yeah.
You wouldn't read ahead. You wouldn't plan ahead, and you didn't break it on purpose because you don't really care about that.
No, it was just more fun to play a person.
You were thinking, how can I be weird?
Yes.
How can I do this?
Yeah. It's like, in fact, my monstrous humanoid bow, which I killed for use for giants, wasn't because I knew we were fighting giants. Because I went, I am a ranger and I hunt giants down. Therefore, I will have a ranger hunting bow. Not because game-wise, but because story-wise, of course I would have that.
Yeah, the same way as you built your Tyrannid, destroying the army in
40k.
Well, it doesn't matter what I'm playing against, they're going to have the Tyrannid perk because that's what they're built for. Game-wise, I can see that perfectly.
Yeah, so I consider Colin my fellow story monkey.
Yeah.
And then
think about between the two of us, we probably shouted at one another the most in roleplay games when an NPC says something stupid or we don't like.
Yeah. So you might have people that are getting really into character around the table, and yes, Colin and I have shouted at each other.
Yeah.
I remember standing in your living room and saying that I would burn you and send you back to hell. I declared you a blasphemous beast and roared in your face.
Yep.
Because you were playing a demon at the time and I was playing an inquisitor.
Yep. And I screamed back that actually it was all for the greater good and control was better than free will.
Yes.
That was fun. I think some of the other party were actually quite concerned because we both were standing up screaming at one another.
And it was absolutely fine. I actually had a moment with a friend of ours who I rang his character. It's a cyberpunk game.
Yeah.
His character was on a rooftop waiting to snipe someone in the dead of night with a gun that could see through walls because that's cool. It's like cyberpunk.
Yeah.
And his phone went off. And it was his ex-wife asking why he hadn't been round to pick the kids up. And we had a break right after that scene because I thought he was going to kill me. And it was just because he was so into character. He got so like menaced in the character, and just like was glaring at me like, no, go, no, and got really angry.
Yeah.
And then I said, we cut, and I went, cool, we'll have a break. Are you all right? I didn't overstep the line or anything there. And that, we'll come to that in a second. Didn't cross the line. He went, no, that was really good.
Yeah.
Oh, I hate her. It's next week I'm meant to have the kids. And actually, one way I've come from spotting this is that, again, there's no right or wrong way to do it. People that are really into playing their characters will say, I do this.
Yeah.
I charge the orc.
Yeah.
I pick up the gem from the altar. I fire my sniper rifle through the wall.
Yeah.
People that aren't as much into it will say, character name does this.
Yeah.
Jeff will go over there. Conan will do this.
Yeah.
Exilian, conqueror of worlds, will go over there, and they will do
Well,
that.
that could work either way because they might just otherwise be out of character.
Well,
talk to
actually,
themselves.
sorry, it's Excelsior, conqueror of worlds.
That's better.
Who
I know a few people talk about themselves in third person. So.
I played Excelsior, conqueror of worlds.
Yeah.
He was a second level tiefling thief. He just claimed to be Excelsior, conqueror of worlds, and was really good at lying to people. And people left him alone. Walked around with a stick. He dressed as a wizard, but he just like nicked your purse.
But yeah, no, going back to kind of arguing in character almost a little bit. I mean, again, going back to that first game session I did when we went into the kitchen at one point to do the checkpoint checks.
Yes, yeah.
And
God.
I stopped because I wanted to carry on because I wasn't used to it. I'd started getting a little bit into character at one point and started having an actual argument with Brian's character, who was trying to check me over despite me not having anything. And had already dragged Colin's character away into a cell, which had annoyed me because it was a doddery old man who'd just been dragged off quite cruelly. Again, in character, and I started having this argument. And I got about the halfway point, and Brian stopped, and I was like, "Yeah, no, this is all right. It's fine. I'm not actually angry, but in character, I was.
Yeah.
But I didn't know if I was over. I felt like I might have been overstepping the bounds, like I'd been."
And that's great. There's that emotional engagement with what you're doing.
It's
Whether
really
it's
good.
the joy of killing the dragon and that's what you're into.
Yeah.
And you're like, yes, those feats I took 13 levels ago are finally paying off.
Yeah, that could be really fun at times.
Or it's, haha, I feel like I'm someone else. The joy of acting. There can be, in a lot of groups, a lot of acting, a lot of improvisation, a lot of being a different character involved.
Yeah.
Again, things that groups will work out as they go along. If you join a new group, so if you've not played and we've convinced you to have a go and you might know someone who plays, you might know some of us, you might want to come and play with us.
Yeah.
Yay!
Hi, Mum! That was your first thing you ever said on our podcast.
So, hi, Mum.
Yeah, no one will listen to this. Hi, Mum. Just thought I'd mention that. That should be your catchphrase.
Yes.
No, your catchphrase is no.
No, it is. Yes.
My catchphrase is excellent. And Aaron's
Disappointed
not working hard
size.
enough. Yeah. Aaron's is we're going to have to cut that.
Yeah.
Which you never hear because he then cuts it out.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes, so you might join a group that already exists. You might need to just discuss with them what their table style is, what they do, how they play. If you're starting a new group, you kind of make these things as you go, but you might want to discuss them first. How will you deal with what they call metagaming? So bringing knowledge that you as a player might have, but your character wouldn't.
Yeah.
How do you deal with out of character and in character conversations? That hand on the head thing is quite useful.
Yeah, it is.
Found.
It might sound stupid, but it's not when you're doing it.
It is, the actual action itself is stupid, but that kind of helps because it makes you feel like I don't want to do this unless I need to.
Yeah.
So you concentrate more on being a character, which helps with the roleplay.
We used to roleplay so much that whenever I would utter an aside in real life, my hand would start to come towards my face. Yes, not good. So you just need some players who are roughly on the same page, know what to expect. Someone to run the game generally. Your resources, your rules, your dice, etc., etc. And you're good to go.
Yeah.
Now, it will feel strange to start with.
Yes.
All good things do. You need to relax and enjoy it.
Nobody's role-playing this anymore, are they?
No.
We just role play together.
We've-
I'm very relaxed now, guys.
We've lost our entire group now.
If we could look at the stats, that's the moment when everyone stops listening to what we say. But no, you said like you felt awkward to start with.
Yes.
Because it is unusual. There's not.
I know, I did.
But I'm sure we all, when we were kids, pretended to be other people.
Yeah.
Had conversations with imaginary friends and imaginary things. And argued over who got to be the pink Power Ranger.
No, who got to destroy the Martians in War of the Worlds.
Yes.
God, your school was high class.
There was only 3 of us that played. We were outcasted. Like my boy.
Did you have to hide beneath the church, waiting, knowing your day would one day come?
We did have.
Ooh la!
We did have an entire break time hid in the bush at the back, hiding because the world was coming. That was it. We'd hide from them. But yeah, so you would have all role played in some form, even though it might have been as a child.
It's probably more intimidating to join an established group. I don't know how Aaron felt about it. When I first joined it, well, in your group, I was sitting there going, well, I actually remember the very first question. I still remember it, and it's almost embarrassing now, so I'm going to tell it.
Okay.
We were doing a modern day, and I was playing a FBI agent, I believe, and you asked me what my character looked like. Nowadays, I go, right, I've got this hair, I look like this.
Yeah.
And I didn't know what the hell to say, so I sat there for about 3 or 4 minutes with everybody staring at me going, so what's he look like? And eventually I went, Tom Cruise. Because it was the only thing I could think of. That was it.
It's nice to know what the screensaver in your brain is. It's just a happy dancing Tom Cruise vest.
It was, yeah, which very silly, but at the time it was.
Yeah.
Oh no, that's another thing. It might feel intimidating because you're thinking it's a role-playing game. You've got to play a role. That's where it comes from.
Yeah.
I've got to make up a person.
Yes.
Yeah.
I've got to be a whole new person. You know, I'm human. I barely know how to be myself. Who am I from day to day?
Yeah.
Am I with my mother? Am I with my girlfriend? Which version of me am I? I've gone a bit too far into that.
Yeah, a little bit.
Whoa,
The looking glass self and persona.
We all wear masks.
Oh, God.
Sorry, it's so cheesy.
Yeah.
Everything I say is ironic.
That
Apart
doesn't-
from
yeah.
the bits that aren't. Yes, but actually basing your character around an existing character. So if you're playing a fantasy role-playing game, so it's a fantasy setting going, I want to be a barbarian, I want to be Conan.
Yeah.
And then maybe someone can help guide you through making a barbarian.
Yeah.
If you're playing a modern day setting like that and it was FBI going, I want to be like Mulder, I want to be like Scully,
Yeah.
I want to be like Agent Krychek, who is mildly obscure. That's the word I'm looking for.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Krychek,
well
he was a spy. Yeah, you can have spoilers for 20 years ago.
Yeah.
He was a spy.
Well, I don't want spoilers for 20 years ago.
He was like their little apprentice, and then he betrayed them. And then he got infected with it. Okay, I'm getting.
No.
Ah, there we go.
Oh, yeah.
Never watched X-Files. So.
You missed out. It was good. But pre-existing characters
You
do
might
work nicely.
yeah.
But you do want to try, because it makes it more interesting for yourself,
Yes.
to add different quirks to. So
Yeah.
use Conan as your template, and then try and find something that Conan wouldn't do that you want to bring into your character.
Yeah, so you give him a little twist.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you can play with it a little bit. But yeah, if you're nervous about it, definitely.
Yeah, base it off something, and then just allow that character to develop.
Yes.
No characters should stay exactly the same. If you're playing a long-form game, your characters should, like a normal person, develop based on the experiences they had.
Well, of course, yes.
So you might start off playing the idealistic young thing who's picked up a sword to fight evil, who becomes the gnarled, cynical warrior who doesn't even ask for your name until he's known you for a year, because you'll probably die.
Yeah.
Because lots of people died. Or you could be the cynical, battle-hardened warrior who adopts the orphan child from the village you come to and learns to love again.
Yeah, cheers for that,
You know.
Brian. Not on that quote, but I had a character who started off as if we're putting it in, what's it called?
Just did out a character.
Yeah.
Neutral good stuff. What's that called? Yeah, alignment. Yeah. If we're talking about alignment, I started with I'd say a neutral good character who was
So good for the sake of because they're a good person.
neutral. I didn't particularly have any alignment to.
You're not deliberately against law and order, but you're okay with it. But if it needs to be broken, you will.
And I played a kind of an artful dodger character who was working as a guide at the time for the Inquisition because it was a paycheck. By the end of the campaign, I was playing, I'd say, a lawful evil inquisitor, the same person who had found religion and decided that everybody who didn't needed to die.
But this was over the course of months, and there were reasons.
6 months.
Yeah, there were reasons for that character.
Yeah, he broke me.
Broke me
slowly, slowly.
And that's the way the GM can have fun. You don't need to kill the party, you just need to ruin them mentally.
Now, we talked before, last time we talked about roleplay, so I don't want to get too much into it. No. We talked about player conflict between players. Oh, I don't like you, I hit you with a stick. Again, something that should be discussed and managed beforehand. And we always had the rule that it should be something. If you're in the same group, you're part of the same social group.
Yeah.
So even if your particular characters don't get on and are opposed on things, you wouldn't just murder each other.
No,
because that's not how society works.
No, and we always had, if the group did end up splitting for character reasons in the story, because I tend to run quite story-based games because that's how I play.
Yeah.
You go with the majority and everyone's happy.
Yes.
Yeah.
So just some a little thought about that, because it can be tempting, especially when you're a new player and you've never done anything, because you could do anything in a role play game.
Yes.
You're having an audience with a king, Aaron.
Okay.
Your character, Sir Prancelot, is waiting.
Okay. Stoically, unlike his name.
What do you do?
He starts flirting with another nearby knight.
Excellent. So Aaron could have done anything there, and he chose the sexy angle.
Yes.
Excellent.
But he could have gone, I'm bored of waiting, I'm going to cut my way through to the king and tell him what for.
Yeah.
At which point you kind of need to roll with it as a DM.
Yeah.
And I will say, any plan that you make as a running the game, your players will find ways to mess with them. It can
every
be
time.
Players quite often, when they're very new to a game, will try crazy things.
Yeah,
that quickly wears off.
I tend to find, and I might be wrong here, so feel free to disagree, but I tend to find with the newer players, most solutions newer players tend to find involve violence.
Yes.
I'll just hit it and hope it all works out.
Especially if you're playing something like Dungeons and Dragons, which is combat based. And you're saying, I'm going to be Conan. What does Conan do? He hits things really well.
Yes.
Yeah.
I hit the king because that hasn't worked.
I tried to pickpocket the king the first time I ever played a roleplay game.
Yeah, nice.
It's like, you've met the king, you've all done heroic things before, you've been granted audience with the king, and the idea of the king was to go, you brave heroes, we have a problem, I need you to solve them. Our king was our quest hub. Because we were well important. And I tried to pickpocket him.
Yeah. And
I got caught.
Oh.
And then I tried to sort of laugh it off, and I failed miserably. And I was Mark of Justice, which is a horrible thing in D&D, which basically binds you not to do evil.
Yeah.
Which is quite a harsh lesson, but I didn't just get killed.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, you say that, and you say that, that was as a new player, and what a silly mistake I made. With that post-apocalyptic fantasy setting that you ran, in the first session we were supposed to play on this side of the Inquisition. By the end of the first session, our party had punched one of the High Lord Inquisitor and were banished from the city. So our urban campaign game, bear in mind I was playing a goddamn urban ranger, was banished from the city into the wasteland. So it's not something that just new players make a mistake of doing.
I remember one of the early stories you told me was about setting up a lot of things, like for your the 24-hour charity campaign you run occasionally.
Every year.
Yeah.
Whether I want to or not.
And you set up for them to investigate something away. There was a big war going on, and all the characters were being
this wasn't for the 24-hour one.
Oh, it wasn't, was it? Yeah. There was also all the characters were being met in this training ground, but they then go off and you planned it for them to kind of go off and investigate something else in that they've been called off as like spies.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, the group decided that, rolled very well and decided that they were incredibly good at archery and all the things that were war things, so they decided to go off and join the war.
Yes.
You hadn't planned for it.
I had a war going on in the background that was going to escalate and encompass the players, but it was going off far to the north. It was the same country, but it was kind of the equivalent of
being told to go to the Isle of Wight and then you wandering off to Scotland.
It was a bit like having the Irish Wars, but you're in the very north of Scotland. So it's a different culture, Scotland and Ireland and England in between, and it's a long way away from you.
Yes.
But they decided they wanted to go. Now, I could have, as DM, gone, no, they won't take you. Yeah. Instead, I thought, well, they're going to have to prove it. They all look like young whippersnappers. They're all
young, meagre.
Yeah, 15 to 18-year-old, first time out the village adventurers. Yeah. So I said, right, you can try and sign up, because they were mustering men to go off to the fight. Got them to perform a combat trial, and they all aced it. The dice were just with them, and they were rolling great dice, so everyone assumed that they were amazing. So they got brought in as the hunters and scouts for the group, because they got in by using archery. So I was thinking, light skirmish troops. What that then allowed as well is that because they were scouting, they would then encounter the enemy first. So they were scouting down the road, and an enemy patrol would appear. They have to deal with it. If you're just marching along in a column of soldiers, you do what you're told.
I've been an adventurer, which depends on your group. They might enjoy that kind of thing. But
it's difficult to run though if you're going. You're 5 people in a army column of 1,000 soldiers. That's a very different.
Yeah. Some styles of role play game verge on the super heroic. High level Dungeons and Dragons. There are superhero games out there. There's games like Feng Shui, which I have at home, which we will be playing at some point, where you're basically playing in a Hong Kong action movie. Yeah. So you can run up a stream of bullets and kick the guy with a gun in the face if you're good enough. Yeah. You also have very gritty games, like we play World of Darkness. Yeah. We play Mutant. Mutant, you get stabbed, it goes septic, and you die. Yes. It's very, very...
we need to cross this river.
Different. And
3 of us are drowned.
But again, different groups will find different games that appeal to them, and it's worth trying different things.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, don't necessarily pin yourself down a route like, I like fantasy stuff, so I'm going to play Dungeons and Dragons. Try the others as well, because you'll be surprised about what you actually find you enjoy as a group.
Yes. Yeah. And the thing is, if you enjoy the storytelling, you can play Dungeons and Dragons and put more emphasis on storytelling. If you like the combat, you could play a different system because you like the setting, but bring in some of the combat rules. Yeah. The great thing about a role-playing game is that there isn't a computer there, or there isn't someone, a rule book or anything telling you what you can and can't do. If you don't like a rule, you can chop it out. Yeah. The concept of house rules is alive and well in the role-playing world. So we always used to have a house rule for Dungeons and Dragons, for instance. If you rolled a 20 on a 20-sided dice, the highest you could roll, not only did you get to add that number to what you were doing, you also got to roll another d6 and add it on a 6-sided dice. Yeah. So you could get some really, really high numbers, because you could get 6 more than you would normally even be physically capable of. Yeah. Did we even go if you rolled a 6? If you rolled that again?
Not that I remember.
No, sometimes we might have done.
Yeah, so I don't remember. We did that system in Pathfinder as well.
Yeah. We did have the if you rolled a 20 followed by another 20 to confirm the critical, saying that in combat, and then you rolled
another 20,
then you instantly killed whatever you were hitting.
Yeah, which was a suggested rule from 3.5 Dungeons and Dragons that I went, I like that, because that adds some unpredictability. Yeah. And the other thing is, as a DM, I've lost count the number of times I've rolled 320s in a row, never killed a player instantly that way.
I have done it 3 times, and I've, again, never killed a player.
Yeah, I smile to myself, have a chuckle, and then maim them in some interesting character-based way.
Yeah, I don't know how you do it, but I always do max damage. Yeah. I look at whatever damage that character is capable of, and then go, it's just done max damage, and really screwed that person over.
And again, some DMs will roll their dice in front of the group, and I do that sometimes with you lot, where I'll go, right, if I get 3 successes on this, Aaron's dead. Well, Aaron's character is dead. We don't actually kill Aaron, who would drive us here. So we roll. I'll roll it in front of you for some tension.
Yeah,
that can be quite good. But most of the time, I'll roll the dice behind the screen, and I'm in control. I'm running the story. If I think it's cool to follow what the dice do, that's fine. But if I think actually that's a hideous freak result or that's really dull, I can edit it. I can change it. I can do as I wish.
Yes, it depends on what you're doing at the time. Probably the best example is when our mutant settlement got attacked and you rolled the dice in front of us. That was very tense because we're sitting there and going, although we were involved, we'd only made the plans for the defence of our settlement, so we weren't actually actively engaged in the fight itself. So you rolling the dice at us and basically choosing our fate was quite horrific.
Yeah, I was explaining what each dice roll meant. So they approach here, roll the dice.
But it was good to see.
What I like was the player that I referred to as being the most combat based, the one who's more into the rules and getting the best character. When I said who wants to roll the dice for the settlement, he grabbed the dice. Everyone agreed, and he proceeded to roll the worst set of dice I've ever seen him roll.
God.
It was absolutely stunning.
One.
We're still recovering from that.
The settlement essentially fell.
Yeah.
It more than fell. It was. I liked it. It wasn't a fight.
Yeah.
No.
They got at the walls. They hit the explosives.
And I then used that as a scene to drive the plot forward. We brought you in.
But it was really cool because then when you rolled the dice, we all sat there going, fingers crossed, please don't roll. And it was...
Which feels like if you can see like if it was I'm imagining as a cannonball for some reason. Like a cannonball coming towards it as a character, you're sitting there going, please don't hit it, please don't hit the explosives, please don't hit anything important. Like you would do when the adrenaline's pumping, you feel like slow motion.
And that's the thing, that's the thing, is that the dice can be really good to slow down, to create tension, to create atmosphere, to resolve conflict. They can also get in the way.
Yes.
If there is nothing there for the group to see and they all want to roll a dice to a spot check, for instance, that's going to slow the game down.
Yeah. Sometimes
you'll want them to do it knowing that there's nothing there, and one of them goes, I've rolled a 47, so I rolled a 20 and a 6 and another 6, and you go, you see nothing. And they go, they must be invisible.
Well, this is almost where the metagaming comes in.
Yes. Because if you roll a really bad dice to spot something, and you roll the worst possible result you can get, and I say you don't see anything, you then need to take that as your character doesn't know anything. But they don't know anything because that's just there in the moment.
You also get, I remember circumstances where we've had, a character's gone, the ranger goes and has a look because he's the best spotter. Oh, he's rolled a 1 and therefore failed miserably. He can't see anything. Instead of the rest of the group going, all right, the ranger can't see anything, therefore there's nothing there. Everyone's gone, I'll now roll to check because we know he's rolled a 1.
Yeah.
Whereas if you're staying in character, you should go, oh, well, he hasn't seen anything, but he's the ranger, therefore...
I was say, this is probably where all the golden rules should come into it, and also as long as they're playing fairly, you should probably trust your GM in what they're doing.
Yes, the DM's word is final.
Yes.
Not always in some games, in that if you've not got a DM, then you've got to work that out.
Well,
most things have some final rule, whether it's the active player or something like that.
Yeah. But the DM, is going to want you to progress in the story. He's going to want interesting things to happen for you. So if, for example, in that one, the ranger goes to look, spots and rolls critical miss, the DM might describe them falling down the side of a hill when they're trying to have a peek over because they want you to look over the hill.
Yeah.
There's a hint. You might completely miss that. Yeah. They might be frustrated. But, they'll hint at something. If they just go, no, you don't see anything, then you take that as... oh, well, they didn't see anything, fair enough.
Yeah.
You trust in, again, this is a dynamic you'll get to learn to use to, but trust what they're saying.
Yeah.
Again, and advice to the DMs, as long as you're playing it so you want your players to actually do it so they're enjoying it.
Yeah.
Don't be mean.
You've got to trust your DM. If they tell you that you can't see anything and you roll 47, either there's definitely nothing there, or... they know that actually you need a 50 to spot a halfling in a barrel with invisibility cast on it with a bag on its head. Whatever it might be. You have to have that trust. Now, as a DM, you need to not abuse that trust by murdering the players willy-nilly and ruining their fun or taking their toys away without reason.
This is
take their toys away, but have a reason.
What might actually be quite good advice, especially early on, if you're new to a group or you're a new group playing and stuff, is perhaps do after game talks to see what people got on with, whether there were anything they were really unhappy with or really enjoyed, and you can tweak and play.
Yeah, that's a really good idea. I like that.
Yeah. Well, you did that because I normally give you a lift home afterwards, especially in the early days. You're like, okay, what did you think of that?
Yeah, I chat because I didn't know what your style was. I can play with Colin, and I know if I put something a little bit odd and a little bit quirky, and let him play his character, he's fine.
Yeah.
I know for the power game, I need to put a hard challenge in every session, so that he feels he's had something that he's had to work to beat.
Yes.
But I didn't know you, so I tried to suss you out.
Yeah, which made perfect sense. It allowed me to go, oh, I quite enjoyed that, or I wasn't happy with that. And it also allowed me to kind of hear the defence for things that I might not have been sure about and go, oh, okay, actually that makes sense. Yeah, cool.
Yeah,
and
that's why that happened. Yeah. One thing we used to do, we don't do it now because I don't feel we necessarily need it, but one thing we used to do in the earlier days was at the end of the session, I would say, right, everybody, all the players, nominate one of the other players as role-playing, as being the best role player for each session, and write down why.
Okay.
And what this does is it helps to reinforce the good behaviour and lets you express what you liked about what other people were doing. Because if you're in the moment, your barbarian might be going, I want to kill you, I want to kill you, but actually inside you're going, this is so cool, I really like what you did.
Yeah.
So it lets you kind of get out of character and give each other some feedback. And I used to give a little reward, a little in-game reward. In this case, experience points, because that was
there was also roleplay ticks for good roleplay.
Yes, and I used to...
Oh, yes, I do remember them.
Yeah, I used to give ticks. So someone role-played really well if they did something particularly in character that maybe damaged their character but was in their character's nature. If they did something particularly cool or suiting the mood of the game, then again, a little XP bonus. And that as DM, it helped me guide the players into the kind of actions that I wanted them to do.
As a player, it helps put you deeper into your character because you want those ticks. Because
shall I bring them back?
I did enjoy those.
I'll bring the ticks back.
I did enjoy those ticks because at one point my character was a level higher than everybody else.
That is the problem, you see, because as a storytelling player, I naturally am more inclined to reward other storytelling players doing that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So,
however, because you're the storytelling GM, it makes a lot of sense for you to reward that because that's what we're expecting from you because we're not used to you doing that. So we want the story as such. We might like you said, like with you, and I quite like it sometimes when I get I'll do a silly thing with trying to scare people and it goes ballistic and get, oh look, I made them all scary because I look like I pretended to turn wolf and then I actually turned into a wolf. Cool. Yeah. Because I quite like that sometimes, but
I mean, for people,
I feel more engaged and I feel like I've done better if I've done something in character that Brian's then gone, that was awesome. Yeah.
I mean, I would say for people thinking about some kind of reward for people role-playing well, actually, it can work quite well if you're a fairly new group or you're quite combat heavy at the moment and you want to go deeper into kind of story mode, then that's a good way to start.
Yeah, actually.
Because what you can, because it's not just, you don't just get roleplay ticks for saying things in character. For example, our friend on a game I was running decided there was a fight in a pub. He was on the second floor. He decided to jump off the second floor onto the chandelier, cut the rope holding the chandelier up and send it plunging into the ground with him with it, and then he wanted to roll at the bottom straight into the fight.
Yeah.
And that was a really cool thing. And so the dice roll was quite difficult, and I made up what he needed to roll. It succeeded, and I gave him a tick because it was a really cool idea. Because what he could have done is gone, I moved my 30 foot down the stairs into the fight. Instead, he went, bugger it, I'm just going to throw myself off.
Describe it, something for the Crimson Pirate.
This is something else that you can do. It's not a case of the DM describing everything that happens.
Yes.
As a player, you can describe your action by saying, I attack him with my longsword, or you say, I'm going to block his blow, try and get in under his guard and hamstring the bastard.
Yeah, I like that as a...
Now it's the same dice roll, but it gives the DM something to spin off of.
Yeah, because it makes failing those I have to admit, I always just look forward to ruining those rolls more than they did succeeding in them, because you run off that
you'd spin off of it, and
you glance off the armor.
The burden of creativity is not just the DMs, although they're creating the world, but describing your actions, even giving a little bit of your character's thought process, like that guy stole my purse. I'm going to kill him first.
Yeah.
Or that's the man that climbed out of my mother's window when I was 7. I don't like him. Whatever it might be. You'll have a reason. Giving a little glimpse of your thought process helps me as a DM and helps me as a fellow player imagine how your character's going about it. Yeah. But if you're saying, I hate that guy, I can imagine your character, he's not just sort of charging him methodically, he's probably swinging his sword wildly and screaming something. Yeah.
I mean, that can really help with the players immerse themselves into their characters. But it could also be used by the DM to scare the shit out of players. When you've got an enemy standing there with a great big tower shield on one hand and a broadsword on the other, and he's kind of glaring at you, and the first player runs in and goes, right, I swing my sword. When you describe that you swing your sword and it clatters harmlessly off his tower shield. In fact, you almost fall over from the impact.
Yeah.
But he barely even budges. Yeah. All of a sudden you're going, oh, bollocks, this guy's going to be...
So you're not saying this, oh, no, you missed, the character has a much higher armour class, that's dull. Trying to turn the mechanics into... Imagine how you would describe it in a novel.
Yeah. Yes.
Or how it would play out in a film, how you would describe that playing out in a film is... the best way I found. I had one moment where there was an orc chieftain.
Yeah.
There's a lot of orcs going on. Is that racist?
At the moment, no. Orc chieftain is not racist. However, what
orc
you
chieftain at the head of a band of warriors, and the players got initiative, and the biggest, hardest, toughest player character, who was a barbarian. He was a half-orc barbarian. Charged into him, got angry, which makes them do even more damage. Hit him as hard as he can and rolled a critical hit with a great axe. Now the great axe rolls the biggest dice in Dungeons and Dragons.
It does.
And if you roll a critical hit, you roll 3 of them. And all that extra bonus damage from being really wound up gets tripled as well. And you're ending up, you can kill things really easily. Now at the level they were at, they all had about 50 hit points, which means they needed to take 50 hit points of damage to pass out and be out of the fight. This character ran up to the Orc Chieftain, hit him and did 88 points of damage. It's the most damage anyone had ever done. It's 88? It's 87. Sorry,
enough to kill 2 people,
enough to kill 2 people all the way over. And I said, you run in, and you've surprised him. You're so quick, you jump in before he can even get his own great axe drawn. And you chop into the side of his face, and the bottom half of his jaw is ripped off, and he's hanging there, spewing blood, and teeth clatter across the dungeon floor. And he wobbles, looks at you, and then begins to laugh as blood bubbles out of his ruined mouth. And the character that did that went, and ran away. Because they were so scared that this thing was just so hard. And I didn't have to mention its hit points or its armor class or anything like that at any point in the description. It was all visual.
Because you can get quite bogged down in the combat with the numbers and the dice rolls and things like that in the combat heavy.
And sometimes if you've got a big combat and there's a lot going on, for the sake of pace, you want to get through some of it.
Yes, you don't want to describe every single blow when you've been doing the same fight for the last 15 minutes with 6 people involved.
But if something spectacular happens or anything like that, those descriptions help stop that being tedious.
You'll go in a combat, because normally most combats revolve around players taking turns to do their actions. And you break out kind of like the game time, which could be real time, it could be slowed down, it could be 3 years later and you jump forward. Sort of narrative time, generally into sort of 3, 6 or 10 second bursts where your character is saying what they're doing, and then you're rolling your dice. So when it's your turn, it's your moment in the spotlight. Say something interesting, do something interesting. I always find, as a DM, interesting characters somehow seem to survive longer in my games. Colin's thinking back to all my campaigns.
I am thinking back and going, I die a lot. That's normally because I stand there going...
It's because you choose terrible things because they're more entertaining.
You take a storytelling thing and you go, no, I'm not backing down, even though you know you're going to die out of character, for instance.
But yes, you are correct. The more interesting characters do tend to live longer in your games rather than I'm a knight, so I hit things. They don't tend to last as long as I'm a wizard, but I'm not actually a wizard, I'm a thief.
And part of that is just having that think about, before you get started, is to say, I want to play this kind of character, I'm going to be like this.
Yeah.
And I always liked either trying to sum up the character in a sentence. So the character I'm about to play for 5th edition D&D is, their classes there are a tiefling warlock. Yeah. So they're a demonic creature that uses demon magic. Yay! Yeah. Double demons. Doubling down on the demonic. Oh, God, there. But my concept for the character in my mind is that he is a street kid who will let nothing get in the way of his dream of becoming an airship captain. So I know where he's from, what motivates him, and exactly what he's willing to do, which in his case it can be anything.
Yeah.
I'll drown babies. It's fine.
Out of context, that's hilarious.
Yes.
That needs to be clipped into its own.
That might be the preview for next week.
And that's enough for me to get going. One thing we used to do was we would think, okay, we're playing Dungeons and Dragons, you're playing heroes.
Yeah.
Pick 2 positive traits for your character. So it might be that they are they're brave, or they're loyal, or they're steadfast, or they're honourable, or they never back down from a fight, or whatever it might be.
Yeah.
And one bad thing.
Yes.
Because, so none of us are perfect. All of us have a mixture of good and bad. And probably if you're a hero, you're more good than bad.
Yes.
If you're a bad guy, I used to build my bad guy characters by thinking, what are they're 2 horrible traits.
And one good one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I had in one game where the antagonist, their low-level antagonist that they were sort of fighting against when they were quite weak, came back when they were much more powerful. Wasn't really much of a threat anymore, but he needed a job doing.
Yeah.
And he may have been he ran a school of assassins. But the reason he ran the school of assassins was he never broke his word. He was absolutely, if he said he was killing someone, you could trust, you give him the money, that person would die.
Yeah.
If he said that he would leave you alone, he would never take a contract to kill you, no matter how much money was given. So when he came to them and said, I need you to do this, and it was actually something he was in conflict with another bad force, they knew they could trust him.
Yeah.
And they had a grudging respect for him because he had that positive positive characteristic as well as the negative characteristic.
Yeah. No, that's works.
So it's a nice way of just trying to flesh out your characters.
Yeah.
For instance, the character of Jahamid in Mutant Year Zero, you all absolutely hated.
Yes.
But he had his reasons for doing everything that he did, and without him, your arc has suffered massively.
Yes. Out of character, I completely agree.
Yeah.
He had a survival of the fittest. We need to be tough because everything is horrible out there.
Yeah.
And unfortunately that made him callous to other people, which brought him into conflict with you. But when you started coming into conflict with other things from the zone, you realised, actually we might have needed someone like that.
Actually, that's where my character's very much going to head.
Yeah.
Because he realised that actually some of Jahamid's ideas weren't necessarily a bad
good
idea.
example, actually. Scar is a character that's massively changed in the year since you started playing him.
Yes. He went from he started off as, I don't really know what's going outside the workshop.
Yeah.
Because I just sit and tinker stuff. I didn't even know slavery existed. I knew there was what we refer to as indentured servitude. So you gave away your freedom, in return you worked, but you were fed.
Yeah.
I knew that existed. I didn't even realise it had become full-blown slavery. Then I moved on to actually wanting to free the people of the Ark and install democracy, which I had learned of. These things called committees, where people would sit round
we'd come
in
across
circles.
A group who'd embraced corporate bureaucracy to a T, but you could kind of see democracy in it.
And everybody got a vote and it all seemed marvellous. And then when that failed, I turned to violence, and then going, right, I will be violent and I will lead people, but I will give my people a choice, but I will lead them, and I will have the final
So
say.
you became a fascist. You took the cream of society and said, "You are better. We are better."
Yeah.
Yeah, that's quite.
And then from there, where I was going was, no, people are too stupid to get their own choice because they keep choosing the wrong things, and therefore I'll tell them what to do.
Because every time you might go for democracy and all these nice things, like you can have all great things, and then they go off and do something different because they were scared.
Without planning it, you followed that revolutionary's path to dictatorship.
Yes.
Yeah. Which I don't think you did think about.
No,
it just happened as you.
When I genuinely wanted to free the slaves, and by the end of it, I probably would have reinstated slavery.
Yeah. I mean, there's lots of different approaches to character, and you've got this idea. I mean, I like to play a character from a different viewpoint to mine.
Yes.
So I'll pick a very different viewpoint and run with it.
Yes.
Almost as a way of testing out that viewpoint. What does it like? How would it react to things? Sometimes there's some sort of wish fulfillment kind of things. I'd love to be a half demon thing that could blast things with demon energy. Yeah, that's in there.
I'd really like not to be a tiny 5'7" coward.
And so people might like that side of things. Yeah. People might like the idea of throwing themselves into weird situations and just thinking and being as themselves.
Yeah.
And again, there's no right or wrong way of doing that.
No.
Yeah, it's quite interesting. I like seeing characters develop over time, seeing them react and change, whether it's from things that happen to them or physical injuries or even characters getting responsibility in the game. So I mentioned the idea. I didn't throw because that'd be horrible, it'd be me. But the group, in one game they encountered an orphan child. Yeah. As I mentioned earlier, in the siege of a city, who basically he had nothing. So we're like, okay, here's some money. Go get some food, and he's like, cheers. All right. Yeah. Knowing that he'd be scammed for all of that money for one day's food because he's got nothing. And one of the characters went, no, he's going to get eaten up out there. Come with us. Yeah. And he ended up being a character in the game for over a span of years, became an adult, and was the squire to one of the other characters.
Oh, that's cool.
And then became a character in his own right when someone else came and joined in and took him over, kind of thing. So and the idea of having this person that they needed to look after for a group of 20-something men with no children was actually quite interesting to see how you reacted to that.
Yeah. Yes. You know. Well, that's the thing, isn't it? You can, like you said, take on stuff that you wouldn't normally think or act or do like, so you can try almost to understand why people would be like that. I mean, obviously it's only going to run as well as your empathy and understanding of those things go, but you can, if you get into character, it's a nice way of exploring.
Yeah, like any exercise in storytelling, pretending, getting into someone else's viewpoint, it can help to increase your empathy and your understanding of other people and how they might think. Yeah, that's quite noble, isn't it? Yeah, that might be a good place to.
This is where I ruin it for everybody. Where I go, my favourite characters are always the bad ones.
Yes, you do like playing evil, terrible people.
Yeah, but for the right reasons. They just lose their way. I always find bad guys more interesting
because they tend to be a bit more well-rounded. Yeah, because good guys tend to be
something went
I'm
wrong.
Going to do everything right, and nobody works like that.
Yeah, paladins are boring. It's the fallen paladin that's the interesting one.
Yes.
Why did he fall? What went seriously wrong in his life that made him
then it goes
his way?
Back to Brian's advice about two good things, one bad thing for a good character.
Yeah, so give them a weakness, give them something.
It makes it real. It gives you again an easy footing for becoming that character.
Yeah, whether they're intolerant of other views or whether they
racist,
they're incredibly arrogant, or whether they are they don't like sharing.
Yeah,
they're a wonderful person and they'll help you out, but then you're on your own.
Yeah.
And they might want paying. So like my Mind Jammer character is not me at all. It's a space capitalist.
Yeah, very much.
It's been quite interesting trying to explore that.
Where's the profit in this? It's almost his catchphrase at the minute.
Yeah. Show me the money. I may start shouting that on Friday. So you want me to sum up, or do you guys want to sum up?
No,
you sum up.
Yeah.
So to get yourself started in the role-playing hobby, hopefully we haven't put you off and we've got you interested. I found it quite a richly rewarding hobby.
Yeah.
Most of my closest friends I role-play with or have role-played with. I feel I know them better from doing it.
Yeah,
it's interesting to see how people react and think and kind of things they're interested in and they want to explore and do in this world of infinite possibility. You just need to gather some hopefully like-minded people or find some people that are already playing. Just make sure that you have a little chat about what you're doing and what you're hoping to get out of it and how you want to play things. Make sure you let the DM have the final word. And make sure if you are the DM that you use that power responsibly, and everyone has the goal of having fun. Because telling stories is great. And we're all immersed in stories. We all watch TV, we watch films, we might read books, some of us, comics.
I've always
play games,
role playing to like the old campfire horror story tales almost. You're all sitting around and all kind of telling a similar story and developing and building it. And it's a really good community building thing.
It is a thing.
That was a really rubbish
exercise.
Yes.
So excellent. Hopefully we've piqued your interest if you're not already a player, and if you are already playing or running role play, hopefully some of the things we've mentioned have chimed with you, maybe given you a new perspective on what you're doing. I know it has for me, because I completely got rid of the idea of those little role play reward ticks. Didn't realise they were so missed. I'm going to bring them back next time I run. Definitely. I have a different method in mind for them, but it will definitely be to reward good role playing, and then maybe to punish bad role playing. That's much more subjective. That might get me in trouble. But if you've got any questions, if you'd like to have a chat with us, if you'd like to pick our brains on anything, or if you're trying to get a game started and you're having trouble, give us a bell. You can comment on our YouTube. You can comment on our SoundCloud. You can find our Twitter, which is at critical_twits. You can tweet directly to me at the Brian Ennis. You can tweet to Aaron
at Aaron Ravinsky
with a W.
There's a link on both YouTube and SoundCloud.
And Colin is a silent man, a ghost, a mirage in the fog.
I'm not even real. I'm just Aaron doing the silly voice.
Still haven't linked your Instagram. We're all Aaron doing a silly voice.
Yes, we are.
God, I'm not even my own. I'm not the real person. I'm someone else. I'm my imaginary friend's imaginary friend.
To be fair, Aaron's a great role player, considering he does 3 different people's voices and 3 different personalities.
So if you want to hire me for voiceover work, contact me.
Yes. And thank you for listening. I've been Brian Ennis.
I've been Aaron Ravinsky.
And I've been Colin Howard.
And if you want to see some of these tips hopefully put into action and see us practicing, or hear us practicing what we preach, our next episode will be a playthrough of Fiasco. So we hope you tune in then. Cool. Until then, thank you very much. Bye.
Bye.